What's good, gamers? I'm sure you know exactly why you're here. You clicked on this title because, yes, there's a new cinematic for 10.15. It's called A Matter of Time. And this is not a reaction. I've already seen the cinematic like a million times already, so nothing to react to. No, this is an analysis and a deep dive into the cinematic to see if there is any secrets that we can actually uncover, and spoiler alert, there is. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it, shall we? Something that I thought was really interesting was the choice of actors in this cinematic. They decide to go with Alexstrasza and Nozdormu, and there is a reason for it. These are the only remaining original aspects. And while the other new aspects would certainly understand the dangers of Murozond and of the infinite flights, it was the original aspects that were there at the start when Nozdormu first saw his death. First saw himself becoming Murozond. And I thought it's interesting that Blizzard decided to use these two actors for this specific cinematic.
My friend, do the clouds still accost your mind?
Something much more terrifying. A moment of clarity.
That is an important bit of information. It's been a while now that Nozdormu has failed to really see or peer into the future. The timeways is chaotic. He even says it atop of Valdrakken post the Razageth raid. They're obscured. He can't see what the future holds. He can see the chaos, and he can see that the timeways are not reacting the way that they're supposed to, but he can't pierce the veil. He finally had a moment of clarity, something that allowed him to see what the future could hold, and I believe that moment of clarity is afforded him because it involves him. We of course have the images of Deathwing, the end times. This is the only real reference we've ever had in World of Warcraft of Murozond. And for those of you that don't quite understand the significance of Deathwing, of the end time dungeon, this was really an attempt by Nozdormu to ensure the death of Murozond. The problem with Murozond is he exists on all of the timelines. So the only way to really bring him to an end was to bring all of the timelines into a single moment, and that was the end times. But that was an alternate timeline. It's not the quote-unquote real timeline. Murozond is both alive and dead at the moment, and that really is the significance of showing us the end time image of Deathwing atop Wyrmrest Temple.
I have lived 1,000,000 lives and witnessed their endless unfolding threads.
There is something interesting here, and I can't really place it. Nozdormu's eyes. Now, on first look, you'd say, yeah, they're blue. They've always been blue, and you would be correct, but take a look at this. So I went through a number of the other cinematics. The blue in this one, as well as the blue in this one. Is it just me, or is it fading? Is it becoming or starting to resemble more the colors of the Infinites? The Infinites have this black, white, bluish glow to them. I don't know why. His eyes appear to be resembling that more. It's a lot more striking blue in these ones. More striking blue in this one, and this one seems to almost be less striking blue, more starting to take on that hue of the Infinite Dragonflight. Might be wrong on this one. That's just to my untrained eye when it comes to color, what I'm observing here. It just stood out to me.
Was it a vision? A memory or a dream? Is there any difference?
Nozdormu, what did you see?
My hour grows late.
So for those of you that might be wondering, what does he mean with his hour grows late? I already alluded to it in the beginning of the video. Nozdormu will die. At the moment of his death, he will refuse it. That's his burden. That is what will happen to him. For some reason, and we don't yet know why, he will just not accept his death. In not accepting his death, he will ultimately become Murozond, the Infinite.
Those who broke their oaths to the Time Ways, the Infinites.
Those who broke their oaths to the Time Waves, the Infinite. There's an interesting little tidbit here, and an interesting bit of speculation maybe. What does he mean when he says those who broke their oaths to the Time Waves? From my perspective, in order to answer this, we have to understand the difference between Murozond and Nozdormu. And from where I sit, based on the evidence that we have available, and grant you, there's not much, but based on what little we have available, there really is just one key difference between Murozond and Nozdormu. Keep in mind that Murozond is Nozdormu. Nozdormu is Murozond, with one key difference. Nozdormu, as a fundamental principle of his existence, believes in the one true timeline as laid out by Aman'Thul and the Titans. Since Aman'Thul believes in a singular timeline, Nozdormu believes in this as well. And the sacred charge, the oath to the Time Waves that the Bronze took, is protecting this one true timeline. On the other side of the coin, Murozond does not believe in a one true timeline, but rather believes in multiple timelines. Oh, there's so many interesting threads here. The Infinites are not obviously evil. When you go through the history of the Infinites on Azeroth, the things that they have done on Azeroth, there's a number of things that start to stand out as interesting little moments. Durnhold, they seek to stop Thrall from escaping. The Bronze Dragonflight sends us to stop them from stopping Thrall escaping, because Thrall has to escape, because without Thrall's escape, the Horde will never be founded. During the times of the Black Gate, we find the Infinites trying to kill Medivh because they want to stop Medivh from opening the Dark Portal in order to stop the invasion of the Orcs. Now, the Bronze says we need to stop this, and the reason we have to stop it is because without the Orcish invasion, the Alliance would never actually have banded together, and that would have left Azeroth completely incapable of defending herself when Sargeras and his demons finally did invade. The problem with all of these, and there's many more examples like this one, they're not necessarily as cut and dry as that. It's not obvious to me that without the Orcish invasion of Azeroth, Sargeras and his demons would have invaded in the first place. Many of the things that transpired during the Orcish invasion of Azeroth allowed Sargeras and his demons to invade later. Without that first invasion, the second one most likely would not even have occurred in the first place. So that needs to be kept in mind. It's also not obvious that Thrall's escape was the only reason the Horde would have been founded. There are plenty of other heroes at the time that could have founded something akin to the Horde, and we don't even know why the Infinites wanted to keep Thrall in Durnhold. There could be a lot more to that story. The point I'm trying to make is, every single time we have found the Infinites on Azeroth screwing with the Time Waves, the only reason we've interfered, it was at the behest of the Bronze Dragons, and the only reason we trusted the Bronze Dragons was because they said, "Trust me, bro." They never provided any evidence for why we should stop the Infinites. Now, based on all of the information that I have available, and that is all the information that everyone has available on the Infinites, I have come to a specific conclusion. For Nozdormu and the Bronze Flight, the single timeline is the most important thing and needs to be protected at all times. It's not about how things play out, but rather that they play out according to the singular timeline. That is their main focus. For Murozond and the Infinites, it appears to be they have a goal. Murozond wants to achieve something, and for him, it's not important that the single timeline remains intact and unchanged. He will change as many events as possible to ensure that this one goal is achieved. Now, in his final moments, his final words is Amanthul, what I have seen. That's the final time we hear Murozond speak, and it has to do with something he saw. Was it something he saw while he was Nozdormu, or something he saw once he became Murozond? Another interesting one to keep in mind here, and we'll get back to the cinematic in a second, the timeways, as they exist right now, didn't necessarily always exist, which kind of makes sense as to why the Bronze Dragonflight's charge may be completely bogus. I'm not going to go into all of the detail now because that would literally be an entire 20-minute discussion. So it's a video really on its own. But what you need to know is, it says that, at least the lore that we have available, at the moment of Murozond's demise, or at the moment of Murozond's birth, rather, at the moment of Nozdormu's demise, it shattered the timeways, turning it from a single timeway into infinite timeways. It's duplicitous and it's kind of weird because it could mean a number of things, but what I've taken away from that, and you might have your own opinions on this, there was only ever one timeline until the creation of Murozond, which shattered the timeline and turned it into fragments of millions upon millions of timelines that now exist all at the same time. Amanthul holds true to the one timeline that used to be the one timeline, even though there are now many timelines that exist, whereas Murozond and the Infinites, they hold to all of the timelines being capable of bringing about whatever event they have in mind. Like I said, that could be an entire video all on its own, going through all of the little bits and pieces of information, but broad strokes, that's what I think you need to know. I would also be interested, is this Incarnates? Am I just completely bonkers here? They focus on this character. I don't know who it is, but they definitely focus on this character as if I should know who this is, even though I don't know. So if you know, let me know in the comment section who this character is. I'm certain it's not a character that I've seen before.
I've struck a bargain. I do not know what Iridikron has promised them, and yet
We have defeated each of them before.
There's also an assumption made here. I do not know what Iridikron has promised them. What if the assumption is wrong? What if the promise went the other way? The Infinites promised Iridikron something.
yes, but together, the infinite horizon is all but inevitable. And once I become what they desperately want me to be, the darkest version of myself.
Like I say, take a look at the colors, then go back to Nozdormu's eyes and tell me that it's not at least a little resembling. Like, there's a slight resemblance there. He calls this the darkest version of himself. I'm not entirely sure I agree with that, because again, we just have so little information about what the difference is between Murozond and Nozdormu. The darkest version of himself, according to himself right now, tainted by the Titan lies, at least as far as Murozond is concerned. The Titans lied. Those final words of his, Amanthul, what I have seen, it sounds like an accusation. I've seen the truth. I've seen through your lies. Interestingly enough, every one of the aspects that succumbed to the madness, so to speak. Nalfarian, who ultimately became Deathwing. We have Murozond, or Nozdormu, who becomes Murozond. They each seem to have a problem with the Titans, and specifically with the Titans' design. Interestingly, so do the Incarnates. The very reason for the Incarnate War, the War of the Scales, or the Scaleborn, as we now know it's being referred to, wasn't due to hatred of the aspects. It was due to the interference of the Titans. Virnoth and Alexstrasza used to be friends, actually very close friends. Something the Titans did just did not sit right. with the Incarnates and seemingly doesn't sit right with Murozond, nor did it sit right with Deathwing. I think we're in for a lot of reveals in this expansion.
The future will be lost. And so will I.
I am not giving up on you, my friend. We are not giving up on you.
This has been building for a really long time, let's be honest. We've known pretty much since, I want to say Wrath, but it may actually be earlier than that. We've known about Nozdormu becoming Murozond. It's been there for a really long time. I don't know if Blizzard is going to do a 180 and turn this around and say, oh, never mind, we're actually not going to go with that story. I personally don't want them to. I think we've gotten to the point now where this is another example of incredible build-up. And I do want to say, Dragonflight has been phenomenal with the build-ups. But I do think it's about time that we start getting some payoffs. It's about time that we start seeing some really big moments that allow players to get that release, that hormonal and emotional release that just leaves you going, shit, wow. And Murozond's creation, Nozdormu's fall, would definitely be one of those. Big battles, big payoffs. I think we're heading in that direction, and I think it do need to happen, at least sometime soon. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us swiftly to the end of the cinematic analysis. I really appreciate all of you for watching. If you enjoyed this analysis and this deep dive, please remember to hit the like button. It does help out the channel. Also, consider subscribing if you enjoy content like this one. To all of the patrons, the YouTube members, and of course the Twitch subs, thank you so much for your monthly contributions. It does mean the absolute world to me. Without you, content like this one would absolutely not be possible. So for $1 a month, you get access to absolutely everything over on Patreon. So click any of the links in the description down below. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, be kind to each other, be good to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. Peace out, fam.